What up, guys? Bam Bam, your RPG dad for them geek dads, here with ShdwDark, your ninja dad, in our first October Spooky-tober, spooktacular, spooky month Spookston video. We're kind of dressed up a little bit, and we're gonna be coming at you with our top 5 apiece for a top 10, because 5 plus 5 is 10 videos.
Alright, I'm no stranger to scary movies. I love them, in fact. Been watching them ever since I was just a wee little lad. And so number 5 for me is one that's not from my childhood at all, but one that's from recent times, and that one is A Quiet Place. I feel like horror movies are having a renaissance these days. Like, they're not just shitty B movies. People are actually trying to make good movies, and A Quiet Place is a good example of that. And I've never seen a scary movie quite like it, where you're so invested in the characters and what's happening in the rules of the world. The rules kind of apply to you as a viewer. You're sitting there trying not to make a sound. It's just fantastic. And another thing I had to say is kid actors can make or break a movie. You see a shitty kid actor in a movie, it takes you out of it. This one had some fantastic child actors, man. Go Jim Halpert.
I'm gonna start off with a little bit of one of those pre-video advisory warnings. I don't do scary at all. I don't. I apologize ahead of time for my top 5 because you you horror movie enthusiasts out there are going to laugh. I don't do scary. I don't. You do a magic card trick in front of me, I'll throw some holy water at your ass and run. That's crazy. My number 5 is Hitcher 2, which was back in the day when my dad had this huge movie case. He had hundreds of movies in, and I would sneak into his room and I'd take the movies and I'd watch them every now and then. Hitcher was one of the first movies, or Hitcher 2, that I watched. It was a scary movie and I didn't realize at first, but it's about a hitchhiker, a dude that picks up a hitchhiker and then he murders everybody, and it was terrifying.
We could all relate to that.
I have never picked up a hitchhiker in my life, and it is because of that movie.
Number 4 for me is Stephen King's Silver Bullet. And this one's super special to me because it was the very first scary movie I saw when I was a kid, all the way through without doing this.
I still do that.
Which is the main way I watch scary movies, and the main way he watches scary movies today. And I have a soft spot in my heart for vampires, and a really soft spot in my heart for werewolves. Those are like my 2 main dudes. And this is a werewolf movie that was, I don't know if it was ahead of its time, but when I was a kid, that shit looked real. The hot rodding of a wheelchair, a little hot rod wheelchair with little bottle rockets you can shoot at werewolves, is super awesome. And when I was a kid, it scared my pants off, and it started my, to this day, love affair with Stephen King.
And guys, I'm not kidding you. I saw this movie for the first time like 2 years ago. I'm a grown-ass man. Coraline. Coraline was spooky. It creeped me out. Everybody taking their eyes out and putting buttons in, and everybody just, they looked funky, and I had to watch it with my sister, and she had to hold my hand. And I'm not a really big fan of that kind of animation, especially when it comes to scary stuff, because it kind of adds to the...
So like the stop motion gets under your skin?
Yeah, it kind of adds to it, especially in certain scenes. Like, they have certain scenes that it just... That shit was made for scary movies.
It's terrifying. Number 3 for me is The Lost Boys. You heard it earlier that I like vampires, and I also love the 80s. And this movie just oozes vampires and 80s. It's like a big amalgamation.
I've seen Lost Boys. I like Lost Boys.
It's great.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Another great thing, it had Corey and Corey. Feldman and Hain.
Corey and Corey from The Sweet Life of Corey and Corey.
Yep, everyone does that. No, this movie just bled 80s goodness, and on top of it, it was fun. It had
no, it was the House of Corey. Corey's house, not The Sweet Life. You know what I'm talking about? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I can't remember what I was going to say. The one thing I like the most about the movie probably is it's not technically like a scary movie, but it had that like swashbuckling adventure feel to it, kind of like The Goonies or Indiana Jones. So it was...
But like on an adult level.
Yeah, so it was on some levels it was family friendly, but some of that shit was fucked up. Like they'd stab them and they'd explode or implode. No one really knows. So couldn't even get its rules right. I like that. It's like it's just a fun movie.
All right, I'm gonna say my number 3 is gonna be Gremlins. And I'm sure if I watched it now, it wouldn't really be that scary. But the first time I saw Gremlins, I was like 8. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. And my aunts had hyped up how scary this movie was. And that they were telling me ghost stories and that kind of stuff. And I'm already white. We don't do scary. We're the ones that walk towards the murderer. You white people know. Come on. And then I watched it. And I'm not kidding, probably like 2 years after that, like, I would make sure not to feed, like, my dogs and cats water after midnight because I was scared that they were going to turn. And don't feed them or get them wet. I'm sorry.
Don't feed them after midnight.
Don't feed them after midnight. Don't get them wet.
Yeah. So 2 basic rules of...
What happens if you feed them water after midnight, though? Is that a double gremlin?
Gremlins 3, let's make it happen, Spielberg.
E.T., that was terrifying.
It was.
I'm just kidding.
Like when his neck gets real long, he's like... Number 2, for me, is The Exorcist. Oh my god. I watched this when I was in high school. I've known about it. Like, people talk about it being like one of the scariest movies ever made. And so when I had a chance to watch this in high school, you know, I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm not scared. So I watched it with my sister, and it scared the living shit out of me. I was in so much fear after seeing that movie that I couldn't go to sleep. I was literally seeing shadows and apparitions and stuff in the corner of my eye. The darkness was playing tricks on me, all because of this movie. It was frightening. The effects, even for the time, even to this day, stand up extremely well. The acting, unbelievable. Blair did amazing work. Just her acting and showing like her possessed side was freaking just shocking. There are scenes from that movie I can't unsee and they still stick with me to this day. This movie will fuck you in the butt with fear.
Since fear is an emotion, would that hurt?
It'll scare you a little bit.
Like it wouldn't like stretch. It would just you just get really scared. But from like instead of being like getting shivers from the top down, it would start from the butt up.
Yeah. I don't know the science behind it.
My number 4 is Jurassic Park: Lost World.
What?
When I was a kid, I believed that sharks were in my pool and that dinosaurs were somewhere in the woods. I believed it.
You still
And
believe it?
after watching, sometimes I drive down the road when it's dark and I have my lights on, and as I'm driving down the road and there's like trees around, I seriously am like, this is it. A T-Rex is gonna pop out of one of these trees and eat me. This is it. Today's gonna be the day. At the end, where they bring the T-Rex back to the States, that gave me nightmares.
The worst part of the movie.
When he ate the dog and he was walking around past the houses, I had nightmares about that. I would wake up in the middle of the night because I'd hear somebody get up and like slam a door and I'd be like, that was it.
That was the T-Rex?
That was the T-Rex. It just stepped outside and it's looking through my window. It's gonna eat me.
Alright, for clarification's sake, how old were you when you first saw this?
I was probably 10 or 12.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
And it was a lot of jump scares.
You watched the same movie?
It was!
It's not my place to say what scares you and what doesn't, you know? It's all opinion here.
I scare really easily.
Number 1 for me, Shaun of the Dead, greatest movie ever made. Not only is it the greatest horror movie, it's also the greatest movie. You get everything from this. You get your horror elements, you get your comedy, you get your social commentary, you get your romance. It's a good buddy flick. Like, it just has everything I like in a movie. Fantastic actors, British humor. It's not my favorite humor, but it works so well with this movie. Zombies also, I know it's kind of, you know, played out, especially now. But back in the day, it was really refreshing to see, like, a good comedy based around zombies, not some schlocky B movie. This movie checked all the boxes I like, you know, expect from a movie like this. And it came at the right time, right place and time in my life that I was like, you know, I just latched on and love it with all my man heart.
My number 5, which you guys are gonna laugh at me about, but it covers a couple of like deep-seated fears, psychological fears that I've had since a child. I only recently learned how to swim like last year. My parents couldn't get me, they had to force me to take baths. Like, I screamed. I couldn't get in the water. I was terrified of water. Terrified of deep water especially. I've been to the ocean once, and bitch, I didn't get in the water. Another thing is sharks. Bitches are huge. They're underwater, which is what I'm scared of already, and they eat you, and you won't know they coming.
So you see this guy in Shark Week, you can't get a hold of him.
I'm gone.
He's locked up in his house.
I'm gone. Shark Week is the 1 week a year sharks are allowed to come out of the ocean.
That's what it is. That's why it's called Shark Week.
Another fear that I've always had is being underwater, because I couldn't swim. I hated being underwater. So, deep blue sea. I know. But when they were stuck underwater, their compound was filling up with water, and that shark was swimming around through it, that brought out like 20 of the fears that I have. It's like the top 20 fears out of the thousands of fears that I have, and it brought all of them out. Like, I can go back to that. The first time I saw it, I was probably about 10. Like, if I went back and watched it now, it would be a good movie. The same with most of these movies. It would be okay.
Is it bad
that was just like
I literally hate like 2 of the movies on your list?
I hate all 5 of your movies.
Okay.
So I will never ever watch. And I'm not kidding. I've seen like 10 scary movies in my life. They're actual scary movies. These aren't actual scary movies, except I guess Hitcher and Gremlins were supposed to be kind of.
Gremlins is kind of whimsy.
Yeah, a little
whimsical.
bit. But Hitcher was like a full-on. The beginning of The Walking Dead was scary to me. That's my level. October is the worst month.
It's the best month.
Anybody tries to scare me.
You don't get to dress up. Spooky month of October has just begun, and this was our first spooky video. Hope we didn't scare you too bad.
Too spoopy for me.
Ooh. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors, pick up a hitchhiker, tell him. Please, we're trying to grow this beast. Help us out. I've been ShdwDark, your ninja dad.
Pick up a hitchhiker and tell him. Don't do that. I'm Bam Bam, your RPG dad. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today, and something's over there too, but I don't know.
You have 7 days.